something I'm studying right now is okay. There's of course that core Christian value of forgiveness, right? And so okay, we got to forgive, and yeah, people are gonna, they're not gonna live up to that expectation. Even what they preach, they might not quite do it themselves.
Yeah,
To that they
of
might not meet that
course.
standard. So there's not okay. We have to have that forgiveness and grace for people, but there also needs to be within the church accountability,
Yeah,
where like yeah, if people are either
you're right. We were talking about this before.
yeah, like you said, like shepherding a flock. Like if there is a threat to the sheep, you either need to like stop the threat or remove the
Yeah.
threat. And so like Jesus says it, he's like, listen, warn somebody once. If they don't listen, bring some witnesses. If they still don't listen, take it to the church. And if they still don't listen, like you're out.
Yeah.
Paul said the same thing. Like somebody like that, don't even like sit and eat with them.
I don't remember that verse, and when you said that, I was like, "Oh wow,
Yeah,
that's right. He did say that."
First or second Corinthians 5, it was a guy who was having sexual relationship with his stepmom. He's like, I hear somebody there is sleeping with their father's wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
he's like, yeah, if you don't get this in order, like get out.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think the priority is with things like accountability. It's like protect the people and restore the offender.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, like if you have to bring down like accountability or discipline on somebody, the goal, it's not to like nail them to the wall. It's not to destroy them. It's not to humiliate or embarrass them. Ideally, you want to restore them. You want to like confront their sin and be like, hey, I forgive you, but also this has to stop. This has to stop because you're hurting people in the church. You may be hurting yourself, your family, whatever the case. Now I say the priority is protecting the people because Jesus says and Paul says, like, listen, if they're not willing to be restored, you protect the people and you get them out. So
Yeah.
those are your two choices. It's you can be restored or you will be removed.
Right.
But like you cannot have people in the church hurting people, sinning, causing others to sin. God says like, no, like get where you need to be or get out.
And I think people put a lot on the person who's being offended by that aggressive person. Say, well, Jesus says to be forgiving.
Yeah, 70 times 7.
Yeah, just be forgiving. But the church does stop a lot at the point of dealing with threat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I go back to what you said before. Like, like my main issues I said before is the fagginess, and the like church groups and the leadership in the church, like they try more so to be nice instead of loving.
Oh,
Like Jesus was not nice. He was loving and he loved people. But when it came down to it, nice went out the window. You know what I mean? He wasn't the things he said to Peter, what he did in the temple, those were not nice actions. Those were loving actions and disciplining actions and discerning actions to whip it back into shape.
yeah.
And the church thinks that, to me, a lot of pastors think that I got to be Christ-like. I got to be nice. And I got to be to an extent, be the peacemaker. But a lot of times, listen, what's the saying? What does Sun Tzu say, The Art of War? If you want peace, you're going to have war. And it's not super to an extent of like you go to battle. Like,
Right.
a little battle with somebody in the church who's causing issues. You have to take that bull by the horns. You are the shepherd. You are running this flock. You are in charge of it. And if you allow this to go by and you allow abusive behavior, you can't expect that person to be forgiving,
Right.
Yeah. And I gave you the example before, like, I think forgiveness is very much misconstrued in our culture. You're supposed to forgive. You're supposed to love. You're supposed to do that. Yes, of course. But let's say you have sex with a woman, she gives you an STD. You can forgive her for doing that. It doesn't mean you go and have sex with her again.
Yeah. It's not biblical to like stay in the line of fire.
Right.
It's like, I heard somebody say it this way, like Jesus left some stonings, Paul left some stonings. Like you don't have to just stay there and like, yeah, we turn the other cheek, but you also don't have to just stand there and take it on the chin.
Yeah. No, that's exactly.
Yeah.
Jesus talks about defending yourself, like go out and buy a sword and stuff like that. And those are the difficult teachings that people avoid.
Yeah.
And the church avoids, and they go to the nicey nice. And to me, I'm sorry, there's a great book out there called A Beautiful Outlaw. And
I think I've read that. I think you gave it to me.
I give it to
I
you?
think so. I have your copy.
No, I still have a copy.
Okay.
Maybe I order another one. Keep it. It brings Jesus away from the ancient text that he just seems like an ancient figure, and he takes verses and he's like, this is the humanity of Jesus here. This is what he is saying here. He's making a joke here. He's making the people laugh. He's busting this guy's chops. You know what I mean? It brings a humanity in Christ where you're like, holy cow, I'm actually following a person.
Yeah.
And it takes the mysticism out of Christ. I suggest everyone read that book. It was phenomenal. And they give a great example that when we talked about before that I run into you at the exact moment that I need you. And I believe that God does orchestrate this stuff. He was saying an example where they were all sitting around the dinner table and they had a contest, like the two boys, they had a window washing contest of the door. And the kid was like, I washed it better. My window's cleaner. And the other kid was, mine's cleaner. And the parents, it was just like kind of joking around the table. And at that moment, this bird slammed into the older son's window.
Yeah.
And it was clear that like that was the cleaner one. And they all had a laugh. The bird hit the ground and flew off eventually. But it's like, he's like, listen, I don't think God sent the bird into the window, but this is his creation. This is his orchestration. Like, he's created this for us. Unfortunately, it's a fallen earth right now, but God orchestrates this stuff through love for the people who love him.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's sending birds into windows to make us laugh, but it's his creation just kind of doing its thing that he set it in motion to do.
Yep.